Welcome to the Kid Men Podcast with Dr. Val and Dr. Virginia, where we talk about everything kid men.
And pull back the curtain on some of the surprises and challenges in children's ministry that nobody prepares you for.
I'm Dr. Val, and together we have over 45 years of experience in children's ministry.
I'm Dr. Virginia. Valerie and I met over 10 years ago in our doctoral program at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. We are excited to share with you all the great stuff that we have picked up over the years. We want to minister to you, the children's minister.
Hello, friends. We are so glad that you have chosen to spend your time with us today. Dr. Virginia, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? It's actually pretty chilly today.
I know. We had a storm come through here in Tennessee yesterday that brought in some cooler weather.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I'm sad about is that I was promised snow, and it's not happening.
Oh.
No, I wasn't really promised it. My mom saw on the news that it was going to snow, and whenever anybody says that, I get super excited. I have to understand, I grew up where, here in Tennessee, where we get no snow. I mean, we very rarely ever get any snow that's any kind of significant snow at all. And I love cold weather. I love snow so much. And so it just always makes me a little sad when it doesn't happen.
But yeah, I used to not like cold weather, but now that we're in Florida, I like Florida cold weather, which is like everywhere else is, like spring weather. So I'm okay with Florida cold.
Well, and we keep talking about making the move to Florida. And that, I think, is my only worry is that I am stressing over missing the seasons. I'm afraid I'm going to miss it being colder and sometimes snowing. And,
I do miss fall. I miss fall.
Yeah. See, I love fall too. So I don't know. That's my big stress, but I know that it'll all be good if we decide to do it someday. But that's going to be hard. Oh, well, we have a very special episode for you today. What we wanted to do, we are just so excited about the number of followers that we have, the people that have subscribed to YouTube, the people who are downloading our episodes and things. And so we just wanted to take a minute to reintroduce ourselves in case you didn't see our introduction video, so you know a little bit more about us. And we just wanted to share a little bit of our heart with you of what we are wanting to do with this and why we started this kind of crazy adventure that we're going on, and let you know just a little bit about us. So it's going to hopefully give you a little bit more insight into who we are and
why we do what we do.
And why we do what we do. So, Dr. Virginia, I'm going to let you start. Why don't you just tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
For sure. And I think, because sort of in reflecting on this, our original introduction episode was, of course, one of the first ones that we did, if not the first one.
It was the first thing we ever recorded.
And so I feel like we have both gotten much more comfortable in doing this podcast. I feel like we've developed a really good rhythm. And so I'm like, it would be nice to go sort of back and do it a little more naturally and a little better than what we did the first time around.
Yeah.
And like you said, reintroduce ourselves to people who are new and really just sort of share our heart with this. Right. I was sort of reflecting on, we mentioned this in the intro to each episode, but Val and I met, 11 years ago now.
Oh, I still can't process that it's been that long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
In our doctoral program at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary.
Right.
And, I think we both entered that program sort of with thoughts that this is ultimately what's going to come out of this is we're going to end up being like professors at a Christian college or at a seminary or something. And that's going to be a way that God uses us to help, children's ministers, like the next generation of children's ministers and that sort of thing. And so, that particular circumstance hasn't worked out for either of us to this point.
Right.
But God has given us such a just really unique and really cool opportunity with this podcast.
Right.
To where I feel like it's just something that neither of us even remotely foresaw, at that point in time.
Not even a
at
little
all.
bit. Not even
at all.
A tiny bit. Not even a little bit. I can remember our very first seminar with the program. Yeah. I was working for the Tennessee Baptist Convention, which is now the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board, but at the time it was Tennessee Baptist Convention, and I was an education specialist there. And I came across the program, and I had spoken with Dr. Coley, and just really felt like God was leading me to get my EDD, to get to go to seminary with it, to get it through Southeastern, to, all of the things. He sort of led me there. And I can remember in that very first seminar, one of the very first questions was, what are you going to be doing with this degree? And I was like, I don't know. I really thought about it exactly, because I loved doing what I was doing. I loved working with churches. I loved leading conferences. I loved teaching children's ministers. It was just my heart, and I enjoyed it so much. And so over the course of time, getting to know our cohort, getting to know the school a little bit more, and doing things, I thought, wow, it would be cool to be able to do this in a setting so that I could work with people going into children's ministry, people going into education, Christian education, and really start working, and thought, oh yeah, this is what I think I want to do. Not realizing that God was going to put me in a very specific city in a few years with a very specific job, which is, taking care of family, taking care of my mom, not expecting, thinking that, my husband works from home. So thinking, well, we can move anywhere. So I can apply at any college or university anywhere, and go wherever I need to go to be able to do what God's called me to do. And then God was like, no, for right now, for this time, I don't even want you serving a church. Right now, you are very focused on being here. And so, so it was very much okay, what do I do? How can I still do what I felt called to do? And then when we talked about this and thought, we try this, it was sort of like, oh, this is an opportunity to still help children's ministries, to help churches, to be able to help people that are going into ministry. So,
Yeah. And I think too, and another thing that I was reflecting on too, is that I think it's fair to say that we both see ourselves as stewards of the education that we've been given. Right. We don't, and I feel like we didn't start a podcast because we feel like we know everything, because we know we don't.
No, not even
we know we don't.
No.
We don't have it all figured out. But we do feel like we have been mentored, trained, educated by lots of really awesome people.
Oh, yeah.
And so we are stewards of this knowledge and these experiences that we've been given. And so, God doesn't give us things to steward to go bury it in the backyard. He gives us these talents and experiences and gifts and education to steward for his kingdom. And so, I think we see ourselves as stewards of something that God has invested in us, that it's our job to then share with others for the good of the kingdom and for the work of the kingdom. So
it's so funny that you mentioned it that way, and you mentioned the parable of the talents, because it has just been recently that God has sort of placed that in my mind, because this makes me incredibly nervous, being in filming, to be on camera, to do what we're doing. It's one thing, I can stand up in front of a group of 500 people and teach, and that's fine. But there's something about pictures and cameras and video
and watching yourself and hearing yourself
that just kills me. And so it was so funny, because I was really, thinking a lot about what God had called me to do while we're here, and how this is so different than what I thought I was going to be doing. And it was almost like the Lord was kind of prompting me in a way to realize I right now have been that worker who buried the talents, because I was so afraid that I was going to do something wrong, that I was afraid to do it. And so I was the one that said, here, I wanted to give this back to you, but I wanted it to be perfect. And so I didn't want to lose it or do anything wrong. So I just hid it. And it was that sense of, oh no, I don't want to be that one. I don't want to be the one that God is like, no, you are not, because to whom much is given, much is required. And it's like you said, I think that is the thing, is that we have to step out and do the scary things sometimes. We have to step out and take the chance to do things sometimes, because we have been given this opportunity. I've been given 30 wonderful years serving in ministry in a wide variety of ways. I always hate to, like, in a minute when, I was going to have you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about you. And I always hate it when people ask me. So tell me a little bit about yourself, because in 30 years, I've done a lot of things, and I have a lot of different experience behind me. And it's almost sometimes like people would go, wait, what? You did what? You were what? Like, you've done that, because but God has given me these opportunities over these last 30 years of my ministry to be able to serve in a lot of different ways. And so even if I can just bring a little bit of that experience and the wonderful people that I have learned under and sat in conferences with and been mentored by, if I can even just share a little bit of what they shared with me, then I feel like that's what God's called us to do.
Amen.
So Virginia, let me ask you this question. What made you go into children's ministry? What was the impetus that started the whole, experience for you?
In short, a children's ministry internship. Whenever I was in college was whenever I felt the call to vocational ministry. I was very involved in our BCM, our Baptist Collegiate Ministry, and I loved it. And our BCM was a larger BCM. We had a director and 2 assistant directors. And
wow.
So our, we had a male assistant director and a female assistant director. And I thought, man, I would love to go. Leaving college, I was thinking, like, I would love to go and, like, work at a BCM somewhere. I would love to go work with college students. Like, that was so fun. I would love to do that. And then whenever I went into seminary, I started a job and began working in a children's ministry, preschool and children's ministry internship. And once I was doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so important. If we can get these kids and lay a good foundation of biblical knowledge, then we're not having to uproot a, not so helpful foundation during their collegiate years and relay it.
Right.
And so, I think going from being so interested in collegiate ministry and then going to children's ministry, I just sort of saw that. I was like, wait a second. If we can teach these kids the gospel and instill God's word in their hearts whenever they're young, we just set them up so well for the rest of their lives. And so through that internship, God really opened my eyes to the value of children's ministry. And so that was really where vocationally I was like, okay, I think this is it for me. Right. So yeah.
Right. It's amazing. It's just amazing how God will move us and guide us when we kind of have this picture in our minds.
Amen.
Because it's similar for me in that, I received my undergraduate from University of Tennessee, Knoxville in elementary education. And I pictured myself being in an elementary classroom my entire life. I knew I wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that God had placed that in me, and I knew that was what I wanted to do. It never occurred to me for some reason. I think because I came from a smaller town where there weren't a lot of children's ministers. A lot of churches didn't have children's ministries. They weren't big enough. They, and so they didn't really have that. So I don't think it ever really crossed my mind at the time that, I could, go into children's ministry.
That's a thing people do.
I didn't process that. I had no clue. I started thinking I was just going to be in a classroom my entire life. And so we moved to Chesapeake, Virginia for my husband's work when our daughter was going into kindergarten. And we were looking at Christian schools for our daughter there. And it was one of those opportunities where I just happened to run across a school that was in need of a teacher. And so it worked out in that sense of, like, because again, even Christian education really hadn't crossed my mind at that point. I mean, I was, I was in my, early 20s, with the kindergartner. I, really hadn't thought about anything outside of just, I wanted to be a classroom teacher. And I don't think I had been there for very long before our church asked me if I would do an internship with the children's ministry and the women's ministry. And so I spent one summer serving as an intern with the children's ministry and the women's ministry in a large Southern Baptist church there in Chesapeake, Virginia, and just fell in love with ministry. It was sort of like that click where you just know you are where you're supposed to be. And so for me, from that point on, Christian education was what I knew that God had called me to do, that I had this degree that I could, that I could serve in a way where I could teach Bible every day and where I could, serve a church. So all of those years I was teaching in a classroom and serving as a volunteer children's minister at a church. And so, it's just always been that combo for me, Christian education and children's ministry. And so it's just funny how I never intended on that really being where I thought I was going to be.
Right.
But it was just, I think God,
God just kind of directs our path
to here. Yeah. And so to go from there. Well, Virginia, do you want to share a little bit about what you're doing now vocationally?
Yeah. Currently I am a part-time preschool director. So I am over birth through kindergarten right now. In the past, I have been over birth through 5th grade. This current role fits with our family's needs right now. We have small children, have preschoolers. And so this fits very well with our dynamic and our what our family has going on right now. And I am really enjoying it, really loving it. I'm really enjoying focusing on this age group, focusing on these families. And so, there's just been lots of unexpected, just little things that I didn't know to anticipate that I would really enjoy about only being over birth through kindergarten.
Right.
So
I think it is really nice when you have that opportunity to be able to focus in on an age group, because for most of my ministry, it has been birth through 5th grade or 6th grade, or however the church did. And that's a big it's a lot to do.
A lot happens in those 10 to 12 years.
There's such a difference. And so you have to be able to quickly change your mindset between what the needs of an infant might be and then what the needs of a 4th grader might be. And so it to me, whenever I have had the opportunity to be a little bit more focused in on just one age group or one group of kids, it is a great blessing, because you do have that opportunity to really feel like you're pouring a little bit more into it, because you're not having to be, you're
stretched so much.
It's not such a broad viewpoint, but to be able to do that. And so we mentioned earlier that Virginia and I met when we were in the doctoral program. And so, we have stayed friends over all of these years, even after graduation, after we kind of moved to different states and done different things. But we were just talking one day about wanting to find more ways that we could help children's ministers, ways that we could serve churches in the situation where we're in now, where she has 2 young children, where I am taking care of my mom. And so it's a little harder to be able to do things. And I don't even remember how we mentioned it first or who mentioned it first. But when we had this idea, well, wait, what if we did like a YouTube video and just started talking about some topics? And so we just kind of jumped in. I think that was just what we just did.
I don't know. I mean, and it took us a while before we started talking about it, before we even recorded the first episode. I mean, it was months. We kind of started talking about it. Yeah. And then it was 4 or 5 months later when we actually started recording. And so I think taking that leap, you said this earlier too, sort of taking that leap into, okay, this is this conceptual idea to, all right, we're about to actually do it. Yeah.
Well, and
it's a big leap.
We've been talking about it ever since graduation, because we had talked at one point about even maybe working together on writing a book about children's ministry. So Dr. Coley, who is the program director for our EDD program for our cohort, used to give me a hard time, and still does whenever I talk to him. Have you written that book yet? Have you, because he so wants me to turn my dissertation into a book. And so Virginia and I have talked about it several times over the years, had talked about, this would be a great resource for people. Maybe we could put things together, because she learned so much during her dissertation. I learned so much during mine. We learned so much during our experiences in ministry. And so I think at one point we were just, when we thought about it, we were like, oh, well, wait, we could do, maybe these videos would be something that would be a little easier to get started than to try to jump in and write a book. But I don't think we even really thought about it that concisely, but it was just one of those things about, let's try this and see what happens. And but I think what we wanted to let you know today, and what we were doing, by sharing this, is that we just really wanted to let you know what our heart is. We are not trying to become social media influencers in any way, shape, or form. We don't know what we're doing. We are not, well, speaking for me, I am not the least bit, a person that you want to follow for any kind of advice for most anything except for maybe children's ministry. So we have no aspirations of doing this for any other reason than we feel very blessed that God has given us the opportunities to serve children and families the way that we have over the years. And we know how hard it is. For me, I spent most of my ministry, I just mentioned, serving as a volunteer children's minister for very small churches, which meant that I didn't receive any kind of a salary, but I also had no budget whatsoever. And so I have spent years running ministries with no budget, with no kind of help, with no resources, and definitely not the money to be able to go to a large children's ministry conference.
Right.
And so for me, it has just been really spending time trying to get to know people and finding resources and finding things that I could do. And it was a hard thing to do. And so if there is in any way that we can help you in your ministry, any way that we can serve you, give you advice, give you information from experience to let you know how we figured something out to help you just kind of plan your day or to plan an event, then that's really what our heart is. And it's really what we wanted to do.
Amen. Amen. Well, what's next for us, Valerie? What are some of our ideas?
We have so many ideas. We have so many things we want to do.
That's the problem. We have too many.
We have too many, and we literally tried to jump in with so many.
Yes,
but we really wanted to. We started off with just the YouTube channel. I started to figure out how we could expand a little bit into so that if you because for me, I know especially when I was in ministry, I listened to podcasts a lot in my car just as I was traveling. We lived in the Nashville area at the time. It took an hour and a half to get everywhere.
Right.
So I would just listen to podcasts in the car when I was going from, our house to the church or wherever I needed to be for the day. And so I know that it's hard for me to sit down and watch a video. So we decided to try to expand it. And so we started kind of adding on, Podbean and Apple Podcasts and Spotify just to give you another option to listen.
Yes.
And so we expanded in that way, but there's a few other things. We've mentioned before, Virginia is amazing on Pinterest. She is really great to keep that updated and to put great resources there and to put great information there. And so she is doing that very well. My heart is I love Instagram personally. And so my heart is to really start an Instagram page for us and really kind of give you information and give you, updates on what we're doing.
Little tidbits.
Little things. Yeah. And so my goal for this year has been to start that Instagram and really be able to get you information in that way.
Yeah. We're hoping to do maybe do some conferences this year as well. So we'll kind of see how all that works out. So I may have some opportunities to do some things locally if you're in Florida. But we're looking, I don't know, we're just kind of like knocking on doors and just seeing.
Right.
And
just kind of seeing what opportunities there are there. Because like I said, any way that we can reach you, any way that we can meet you where you are, that's kind of our heart. We have been talking about really getting a blog going. That's something that's on the horizon for this year. We're not quite there yet, but we're wanting to get to that point. And so that's something that we'd like to do, just to give you another option for how you can find resources and how you can find information that we might give you in a podcast in a quicker form to be able to see it that way.
And everything that we forget to put in the podcast episode, we then type up
I can put it in a blog.
We're like, this thing.
Any way that we can get more information out there for you, more things that we can do. If you have suggestions on things that you'd like to see us do, topics you want us to discuss, any of that, we definitely want to hear that.
That's helpful to us to know. And we read your comments. Like if you leave nice comments, like we love that and we read it and appreciate it. So.
We really, really do. And so we would love to get more feedback, to hear more of like the topics that you need, what you need to hear, what you want to hear about more. And so we'd like to do that. Virginia and I have a plan that we're hoping we're going to be actually getting together in person soon and possibly doing some recording together in person for a couple of days. And so we'll let you know when we know for sure about all of that, but we're definitely planning on that.
Yeah.
So basically, we just wanted to thank you. We wanted to thank you for listening. We wanted to thank you for your downloads and your subscriptions and all of the things that we're still trying to figure out that we don't quite understand. You probably know better than we do, but we just want to thank you for all of that and for all of your encouragement. And then the little messages, like Virginia said, they mean so very much to us. So again, if you could just please just drop us a note. Let us know what you'd like to hear. Let us know how we can minister to you. If there's anything that we can do to serve you, that is really what our heart is. So we hope that you have a great week, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.